Welcome to episode 31 of Project 250, a weekly chronicle of the people, places, and events of the American Revolution in the order they occurred. So, without further ado, here's what was happening 250 years ago this week, August 3rd to 9th, 1775. Last week, the Continental Congress established an Army hospital system to be headed by Director General and Chief Physician Dr. Benjamin Church. Congress also authorized the appointment of 4 surgeons, 1 clerk, an apothecary, 2 storekeepers, and 1 nurse for every 10 sick individuals. The next day, on July 28th, the Continental Congress adopted an address to the people of Ireland, appealing for support from the Irish people. On July 29th, the Army Chaplain Corps and Judge Advocate General's Corps were established. On July 30th, Captain James Cooke completed the first eastbound circumnavigation of the globe. At the end of July, in Massachusetts, Major Benjamin Tupper again led a force of 300 men back to Brewster Island to halt the repairs being made to the lighthouse. Tupper's men killed or captured the entire 32-man garrison, along with a subaltern and 10 carpenters, while suffering only 2 casualties themselves. Also on July 31st, Congress formally rejected the conciliatory resolution of February 20th, 1775. On August 1st, the Second Continental Congress adjourned until September 5th. That same day, near Seneca Town, South Carolina, a detachment from the 3rd South Carolina Rangers were surprised by a party of Cherokee Indians and driven from their camp. Finally, last week, the Augusta, Georgia Association Committee confronted and tortured Thomas Brown over Brown's pro-loyalist activities. On the same day, an American rifleman was killed by British troops near Boston, sparking a brief firefight between the rebels and the regulars. As we begin this week, in Philadelphia, the newly appointed Postmaster General, Benjamin Franklin, wrote to Ebenezer Hazard regarding Hazard's application for the position of Postmaster of New York. Franklin, having received a recommendation from New York's Provincial Congress, agreed to appoint Hazard to the position as soon as commissions and instructions can be printed and preparations made to deliver the post. In the meantime, Franklin requested an accounting of the current state of the post office's management. For George Washington, concerns over supplies, especially gunpowder, continued to command the general's attention. On August 4th, Washington wrote to Rhode Island Governor Nicholas Cooke regarding the Army's critical gunpowder shortage. Washington informed Cooke that the need for powder and lead was so great as to require an immediate supply. Washington urged Cooke to forward every pound of powder and lead that could possibly be spared and called for the most strenuous exertions. No amount, however small, was beneath notice and should be forwarded without delay. In an admitted act of desperation, Washington even proposed sending an armed ship from Rhode Island to Bermuda to attempt to capture a powder magazine rumored to be located in a remote area of the island. Washington admitted that at first glance such a scheme might seem hazardous, and its success depended a great deal on fortuitous circumstances. However, Washington argued that the current situation required that all possible risks be taken. Indeed, no danger was too great given the magnitude of the cause and the absolute necessity of increasing the supply of powder. On the plus side, Washington noted that British forces in Bermuda were not expecting trouble, which could work to the rebels' advantage since the enemy would be unprepared and unaware of any prospective attack. Washington wrote a similar letter to the New Hampshire Committee of Safety, in which he again begged for gunpowder. In addition to gunpowder, Washington also sought lead and flints, which were also in very short supply. On the same day, in an effort to conserve gunpowder and reduce waste, Washington issued an order aimed at preventing the firing of guns in and around the camps which, despite orders to the contrary, was practiced on a daily basis and resulted only in wasting ammunition and drawing the attention of enemy pickets and snipers. To rectify this problem, the rolls of every company were to be called twice a day and each soldier's ammunition supply examined during evening roll call. Those soldiers who were found to be short of ammunition would face confinement. On August 6th, Daniel Morgan's company of Virginia riflemen, which left Maryland back on July 14th, arrived in Cambridge, Massachusetts, after marching 600 miles in 21 days, thus successfully completing their portion of the so-called Beeline March. Armed with long rifles that were more accurate and had a longer range than traditional smoothbore muskets, Morgan's men would primarily be used as snipers. On August 8th or August 9th, according to some sources, in Gloucester, Massachusetts, the Battle of Gloucester occurred when a British sloop, the 14-gun HMS Falcon, commanded by Captain John Lindsay, spotted and attempted to capture two schooners returning from Hispaniola. The Falcon captured one of the schooners and chased the second into Gloucester Harbor, where it ran aground. Later that evening, after a 6-hour gun battle with local townspeople, the British under Captain Lindsay finally surrendered. About 36 British prisoners were captured, 24 of whom were sent to a prison camp in Cambridge. The remaining 12, who had been impressed by the British, were allowed to return home. 2 residents were killed, along with 1 hog, but only minor damage was done to the local meeting house and a couple of neighboring homes. In the end, the rebels took possession of both schooners, the Falcon, and several barges. However, the next morning, Captain Lindsay was permitted to depart with the Falcon to rejoin the British fleet at Nantasket Road in Boston. As the week came to a close, on August 9th, the Third Virginia Convention convened briefly at St. John's Church near Richmond, with President Peyton Randolph presiding. The purpose of the meeting was to consider an ordinance for raising a sufficient force for the defense and protection of this colony. However, the convention quickly adjourned, having accomplished little or nothing of consequence. Nevertheless, the delegates resolved to meet again the following day to further discuss the ordinance. The session marked the return of several key delegates, including Patrick Henry, Edmund Pendleton, Benjamin Harrison, and Thomas Jefferson, all of whom had just returned from the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia. And that's the way it was 250 years ago this week. If you enjoyed this video, please tell a friend. And if you like what you see on this channel, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. You can also check us out on Facebook and Twitter, or X, as well as on Substack. Thank you for watching.